everyone. I have not been recording for the past 3 weeks because I have been caught up in a lot of other matters in my life. One being my job, two being my job, and three being my job. But I did not realize that I had made it a prerogative to make these recordings as a part of my job as well. So I am back now, and I will be dedicated to this podcast as much as I can. I'm not putting this on the back burner by any means. I really just want to get good content, and I want to make this something worth listening to, and something worth your time, and something worth my time as well. So, jumping right in to today, we'll be talking to an ex-fashion buyer and now branding fashion consultant, Adela Alonso. If you want to listen to not just the commercial aspect of this business, but also get her take on this industry, stay tuned. Adela is all about fashion. She has been in the industry for, 8 plus, 10 plus years, right?
Yeah.
10 plus years. So just tell us about yourself. What exactly your brand? I've been on your website. I've seen the work you've done. You've single-handedly put everything together. Your whole idea surrounds sustainability. So I want you to go over that a bit and exactly what you're doing right now with your brand, Alonso.
Okay. So I did work in fashion for like 10 plus year altogether. And I had the chance to work in many different positions and in a few different places. So I've done design, I've done buying, I've done visual merchandising, I've done production, a little bit of everything. Worked in Italy, in Spain, and the Middle East, and I worked a lot with Asia. So, I had the chance to see every step of the production process, always in bigger companies, like high street companies. And yes, I was working in Dubai for 3 years as a buyer for a huge retail chain. And it just became too much at a certain point. I've always been like a very hard worker. Like I've loved the work and the pressure and creating things and trying to understand the market. And that led me to overwork myself. And at a certain point, I was really worn out. I was super stressed. And I was asking myself, like, what are you doing this for? And I couldn't give myself one single good reason. I didn't think I was bringing any positive impact into the world. Like, yes, I was doing very nice products and people were happy about it and I was bringing profit to the company. But at the end of the day, this was value brand. I was trying to fight for like a more lean buy, like not so much discounting, like trying to be a little bit less wasteful. It was complicated. I don't know, I kind of fell out of love a little bit with the whole fashion industry. So I quit.
It's so true when you're talking about falling out of love with the fashion industry, being in Dubai and working here. I feel a little less passionate every day when I go to work because I love buying. I just, for some reason, and maybe you can guide me here, I feel less and less passionate about discounting, about wastage of clothes, about markdowns. Why can't we optimize this? Obviously, over the podcast, you're probably going to answer that question. But I'm just saying here that I totally agree with you.
What happens is, and I think this probably happens to everyone in every job, we get so caught into the routine of the job that we're doing that we kind of disconnect of what that represents in the real world, right? So for me, building up collections was very fun, and translating inspirations was super fun, and then building up these beautiful collections and putting them out, like that was cool. But then I would go to the stores and I would see collections that were 3 months old, super heavily discounted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit of an eye opener because you keep pushing to have more budget to buy more things, and then most of these things are discounted. And then it's like, well, obviously, if we are buying more than we're selling, then we're buying too much. And my whole thing that I kept fighting for was, hey, we obviously need to buy less. And that was seen as like something ridiculous that I was saying, like, how is a buyer asking for less money, right? It makes no sense to buy something to be discounted. And then I guess more than falling out of love, because what I loved about fashion was always to try to understand what the culture is and trying to give people what they want and trying to find smarter ways of doing something, which usually means cheaper ways of doing something. But I still believe in that. But the thing is, doing that, trying to understand what the customer wants and doing it on a smart way, today in 2020 means less things, means more practical things, means things that are available easier, things like that. And companies are really struggling to adapt to that, because the reality of, if we accept, okay, this is what the customer wants, the reality is that a lot of brands are going to go out of business, a lot of people are going to go out of the job.
Right.
When the demand shrinks, it's not a very good thing. So a lot of brands nowadays are trying to focus on changing that trend in consumerism.
Right.
Instead of to understand, how do we understand where this trend is going from? How do we adapt our business model to how this trend is coming from? So I was trying to change things from the inside, and it was not possible. So at a certain point for me was, okay, do I stay here and still try and somewhat compromise my vision, or do I try to do something else? So I left and I started a strategic branding consultancy, and I worked with so many different companies actually. Some of them fashion related and some of them absolutely not. But this was actually very interesting for me because it gave me the chance to see other worlds and try to see what is common in all of these different companies. And then I started also traveling. I have been working fully remotely and traveling for more than 2 years now. And traveling means like every 2-3 months I'm in a different place. And this meant, of course, I had to reduce what I own to like a small portion of what it was. Like out of the wardrobe I had in Dubai, I donated like 70%. And then you learn how you can live with much less, right? So I think slowly all of the learnings from my career and the learnings from living like a more minimalist kind of life crystallized into this kind of message that I'm trying to put out now with sustainability in fashion. I see there is a lot of, I think there is at least curiosity from the market. There's a general curiosity and a general spark of awareness. I don't think there's a generalized concern yet, but there is for sure some concern. And most brands are trying to tap into this concern and this curiosity. And they are adapting somehow in different ways, the way they produce, the way they sell, and the ways they project their brands onto the consumers. Now, from my point of view, some of them are really modifying their business models, trying to think for the future. And some of them are just trying to take this as another trend and give the customer an excuse to feel good about themselves, but not really changing anything.
Right.
And this is my problem with a lot of narrative around sustainability in fashion, because it is very superficial.
That is so true. It is so superficial and it is so transient. I wish there was definite change in the industry that we're in, and for people to know that there is going to be a change. First, sustainability was an excuse to market something or sell something for a short period of time. It became a trend and not something that's here to stay. Do you think that COVID-19 and then the post sustainability talk that's happening right now with great big brands like Gucci and these other brands not planning to have like the amount of seasons that they have and then put everything on markdown, then try sell everything that's not selling, goes into the dump, pollutes the environment. So all of these things has a bigger impact. Sustainability goes way far than polluting the clothes, but the kind of people that you hire, the bottom up approach of sustainability. So all of those things in this time of the pandemic, you were talking to me about the stages of grief leading to acceptance and your personal take on respectively the changes to look forward to in terms of that. What exactly can you say about that? Will this COVID-19 be that final pin on the door that will change the conversation forever to sustainability and bring about that widespread awareness that it really, really needs right now?
So it is very hard to predict what COVID-19 is going to cause. First, because we have no way of knowing the extent of the impact that this is going to have, because we have no way of knowing how the next 6 months to a year and a half are going to develop. We're all very good when we have a good day at forgetting the bad ones that we have. We're very good at not learning. We're seeing this nowadays when a lot of countries that have had very restrictive social distancing rules are slowly easing them up, and we see people are choosing to believe things are fine and they're going and living a normal life, which is, it's quite a risky attitude to take. I would want to believe that having had the time of thinking, being at home, realizing things that are important and things that are not important, that this is going to have a direct effect on how we consume, and it's going to actually make us care less about material things, you know? Because I think for most of us, if you were trapped at home, the thing you were missing the most was not going and buying a new pair of shoes, right? You're probably missing hanging out with your friends and traveling and walking on the beach. So I hope this makes us more appreciative to things that are not material. And this is very related to responsible consumerism, because the worst thing that we can do is to, when we value ourselves, our happiness, our relationships, on the amount of stuff that we buy and the amount of stuff that we consume and we give to each other, we're still going to be overproducing and we're still going to be overbuying things that we don't need. So from my point of view, my whole message around sustainability is that I don't think it really matters if every company in the world now starts doing organic cotton instead of regular cotton. It's a drop in the ocean if people still buy the same amount of things. In my point of view, it's overproduction and overconsumption and the short lifespan of the things that we own, the thing that's creating the snowball effect, and then things are completely out of control. But the thing is, if we live in a fast-paced life, the more we shut ourselves in, we won't grow. But it doesn't make any difference. We need to communicate and we need things to grow, yes. The risk of opening everything up, it is higher than the risk of stopping progress for 6 months. Again, in my opinion, which is very unpopular because everybody wants to go out to the normal lives. But I said that people, we are very bad at learning lessons from the past. The closest thing to the current pandemic that we have seen in the recent history was the Spanish flu pandemic from 1919. The second wave of infections in the Spanish flu pandemic was the worst one. Was the one that killed more people than the war. I am very concerned.
I am very concerned, and I don't know why people are not as concerned. I don't know why the conversation has shifted back to opening up businesses.
I do understand when you have a business and you have thousands of people's livelihoods depending on you.
Right.
I do understand, but here's the thing. It is businesses' jobs and people's jobs to take care of the problem today.
Right.
But it is the government's jobs to take care of the problem in 2 years timeline. I think companies, they want their business to go back to normal, and it should be up to the leaders of the countries. Again, in my opinion, everybody might have a different one, to find a way that they can do this somehow in a safe way. And there are companies, there are countries, for example, that what they're doing, I don't know if you've seen the stimulus check that the government is doing, or in Spain, they've done this temporary unemployment kind of thing, where if you have a company and you cannot operate because of the pandemic, then you file this thing and your employees get paid 80% of the salary. They're not technically fired, so you can just like restart it. So what happens when you do something like this? This is kind of smart, because people are not going out, people are in the house, people are getting paid, but they're not consuming. You know, they're saving up, right? The moment things open, people are going to go out. Most of them are going to want to spend this money. And then this money goes and restarts the economy. The thing is, it's a very dire situation. This is how we work. Our brain is trying to find a way to make things better now. What is difficult to accept is that this is a situation that it's bad. There's no make to make this good in the short term, or maybe on the midterm.
Exactly what I was talking about when I said that these businesses are starting out sooner than later. I mean, not just starting out, but they're ramping up operations. They're going on big sale instead of finding out a more economical, environmental, safe way. Value businesses that you were talking about. It's ruthless, the things that I've heard, and I'm not sure if the news has reached you. Staff has been laid off, and temporary unemployment is a better way to go, in my opinion. And there's a whole facade over this, and people aren't talking about, but really it needs to be brought to the forefront. What I really want to know is what exactly you meant by the stages of grief. You were touching upon it right now, acceptance, and then the next stage, getting on with the flow. So what do you have to say about that in the larger scheme of things in terms of businesses and how they should approach the stages of grief and follow that when they're channeling their brand image to the consumers and for themselves?
It's very complicated, because nowadays, we were talking about this with friends yesterday, and my perspective is seen as very pessimistic. I believe that for the next few years, the cake is going to be small. I believe that for the vast majority of people, our level of living is going to go down. So for some people, this means you're not able to vacation 5 times a year. And for some people, this means that they can't afford the rent. People are focusing on surviving the best way they can. This has turned into a political debate instead of a fashion debate. What governments should try to focus on right now is making sure that those people who are less fortunate are not going to not make it, right? And those people who we are privileged enough to be able to make it, we should try to be mindful and think about that as well. But of course, it's complicated, because a person has been trapped inside a small apartment in Hong Kong for 2 months. If you've been trapped in super tiny apartments, talking to the walls and your dog for 2 months, and you're finally able to go out, your level of anxiety is not going to allow you to be thinking about better good, maybe. So it's really complicated. I'm worried about what the next months are going to be. And honestly, for myself, it hasn't been easy either. My main focus for this year was going to be public speaking, and well, that ain't gonna happen.
No, I don't think public speaking is limited to going into a big arena of people.
No, it's not limited, but it's also, I'm very comfortable with public speaking, but I haven't done it a lot in the past. So of course I can talk, I can go on podcasts, and I can do.
You can go on a live, you can go on a
I can
podcast.
talk a lot online, but that's not going to give me a reputation as a public speaker.
The perceptions and the boxes that you have to tick off as a public speaker or an influencer, that's those ideal boxes that you have to tick, those requirements.
Yeah, I think so too. However, it's definitely complicated. A lot of the events that were scheduled to happen are happening digitally, but a lot of the events are also not happening because people are focusing on other things. Like, I went back and thought, okay, I want to do public speaking. Why do I want to do public speaking? I want to do public speaking because I have something to say and I want to put the message out there, right? So instead of public speaking, I'm trying to build something else. So I'm currently writing a book about a business mindset for non-business minded people and for fashion entrepreneurs. And I will do a digital course on that as well, but I'm holding on to that until I go back to Spain because I have a place there that I can use as a studio to record those things. And I'm working on a curriculum around sustainability from my perspective with sustainability to offer to fashion schools. But this is a lot of things that I haven't done before, and I can do this. But the truth is, since I have not been seen or heard, people don't know who I am. They take things at face value, so it's going to take a lot more for me to get the message across, as opposed as if my plan for this year would have gone as I thought, and I would have been talking in 6-7 different universities or events around fashion, then it's easier for me to say, hey, come listen to me like these other people have done. Okay, it's fine. I know that even though my plan for this year is gone outside of the window, I am extremely privileged and I'm thankful. And I don't want to be blind about that. And I was so lucky to be stuck in Vietnam. I want to talk about how Vietnam has managed the crisis because I think there is a lesson in there for everyone. Vietnam has been one of the best countries with managing the COVID-19 crisis. For those who don't know, I think this is something that it's worth noticing. Vietnam is the biggest country without one single death. It's 90 million countries, and there's been a little bit over 300 cases all over. All cases have been traced down. We haven't had any community transmissions in over a month. And this is because of a lot of things, but mostly they were super fast at reacting, or they overreacted. A lot of people were thinking they were overreacted because with like 50 cases, they closed the country completely. They closed the country until they knew exactly where all the contagions were coming from, and they had enough infrastructure and enough systems to be able to trace all of the contagions and to work things in a way. Since March, everyone who entered the country, and of course, almost nobody is able to enter the country, just people who had been repatriated or experts or whatever, had to enter like a 2 weeks quarantine in a military facility. They were giving food, they were giving everything, but you couldn't move until they were sure, 100%, that you were not positive. I think most of the cases that Vietnam has had were detected on this quarantine thing. Now, of course, this has meant a lot of losses for a lot of businesses in the country. And people who live, I'm in Hoi An, which is a very touristic place, and a lot of businesses are closed.
Right.
Despite this fact, Vietnam was scheduled to grow by 7% this year, and it's still estimated to grow by 2.7%. And what the government is now trying to do is the government is trying to attract new foreign investment. It's trying to convince international companies to move part of the production that they were doing in China, Bangladesh, and so forth, to move it to Vietnam.
Right.
There's this rumor, I don't know how confirmed this is, that Apple is going to start manufacturing their AirPods in Vietnam. This is the right way to do things. You know, they're seeing we cannot depend so much on tourism for the next X amount of months or a year. Right. How can we grow as a country? Which resources do we have? Which knowledgeable people do we have? And how can we use these resources and these people in the best way possible in a post-pandemic scenario, right? So, for example, we were talking yesterday in Hoi An, there is a lot of tailors, for example. It's a town that's full of tailors. So how smart would it be for some of these tailors to unionize and do like a big factory and start manufacturing garments for Europe or US or whatnot? They are exporting a lot of sanitary masks and stuff like that. So I think there's a learning there
There is.
for people.
When I look at
It's
Vietnam, it's right next to China. There is a lot of ways that they could have let this virus come into their country, but they really, really nipped it off the bud and stopped all businesses. And they reacted in the right way. And their timeline is so precise. Like they've done the right things at the right time. So it's amazing to see that. And you're witnessing it right there.
pardon my French, but it's a mindfuck because I am here.
Love it.
So I am living in one of the countries that manages the virus the best, and I am from one of the countries that manages the virus the worst.
Worst. Yeah.
I don't know. It is super weird. I want to go back home. On one hand, I really do want to go back home. I want to be closer to my family, and I want to start, Spain. Your sister was asking Spain. I want to go there, and I want to. My company is registered. I was in Dubai, and I'm now registered in Bulgaria because I'm traveling all over the place. So I don't spend more than 6 months anywhere. So kind of where I pay my taxes is where do I choose to pay my taxes. So right. Bulgaria is in the European Union, but it has like a low tax. I want to go to Spain, and I want to open a freelancer license or open a company in Spain, and I want to be paying my taxes in Spain right now. And that's going to be more taxes that I'm going to pay. But this is what we were talking before. Right now, almost everyone is going to have their status lowered. I think those who are status lowered mean, okay, so I'm not going to be able to be in South America this winter.
Yeah.
If I can pay taxes, is the bare minimum that you can do is pay taxes. I want to do that.
I honestly think that when you put all of this together, there are some sort of movers and shakers in the industry that have really done the right thing. For example, Zada. They were doing the post-COVID-19 production phase of garments and the sustainability sort of thing. They were doing it much before post-COVID-19. They never had that many things on sale. Even if they were on sale, they were there for like a really short period of time.
That is a very interesting example, actually. Fast fashion is seen as the enemy of sustainability, and it does make sense because the cheaper you make something and the faster you make something, the easier you make it for people to buy without thinking, right? And then the localization of production, and this is a very complicated topic, and I could go on it for hours, but it's more complicated than it is. And yes, I'm sure there's a lot of misconducts happen. However, Inditex has done a lot of investment in a lot of things that can be used to operate very sustainably. Because before than anybody else, they were working on optimizing stocks, for example. I'm not saying they invested on technology to optimize stock because they care about the environment. Absolutely not. They were doing it because they were caring about the profits. However, these are tools that can be used to operate more sustainably on an environmental perspective.
It's just really smart. And look at them right now. They are unscathed. They are not hurt drastically or gravely by this virus. They have come out. These guys are the winners. Companies that are manufacturing PPC are winners. They've changed their production line to manufacturing masks. These are winners. I see a lot of these people that were in it for the profit go down much before the virus itself, like Forever 21 went bankrupt. And people that are now going to get hit by this have not valued their production line at all. They have not cared about that, and they were in it for the profits, for the cream. They're not in it for putting good product in a smart way.
So when we talk about sustainability, like 9 times out of 10, people is talking about environmental sustainability. Sustainability means what I'm doing, is it possible to do it going forward, right?
Right.
And usually in consumer goods and in fashion particularly, when you're trying to be culturally and financially sustainable, you are also going to be environmentally sustainable because the generation that's coming, Gen Z, is way more concerned about the environment and cares way less about the material stuff because they live their life online, so they couldn't care less about what's happening on the real life. So culturally, you need to adapt, and financially, you also need to adapt. So the more wasteful you are, the more money you're wasting as well, right? The more overstock you have, the more money you're losing. So any company that cares about surviving as a business going forward, it's going to become more sustainable environmentally as well. Now, whether this is a consequence of them caring about the world or they just wanted to survive as a business, I don't know, and I personally don't care.
What are your thoughts on the alleged sustainability experts? We already covered that. Is it a trend or is it a fad? Or these people, they're allegedly saying that we are sustainable, oh, conscious apparel. When we were talking the other day, you also mentioned that it's cute, like for small businesses to come out with a line of 60 pieces and say, oh, it's an amazing range, it's a sustainable range.
When people think they have the answers, when you've only seen 2% of the problem. And I'm not saying that it's not valuable, and I'm not saying that it's not good. I think it's good, but I'm saying that you, with your 60 pieces collection, it's important, but it doesn't mean that what you have done to make your 60 pieces collection can be done in the same way on a huge company. When you have a huge company and your stability as a business is responsible for the livelihood of thousands of people, you need to be way more careful when you're making decisions, because you make a poor decision and so many people lose their jobs. So, you need to think how fast an elephant moves and how fast a small ant moves. It's going to take longer for the elephants to get to where they need to be. It's going to take them much longer. And the fact that they are not getting there fast enough as we wanted, it doesn't mean they're trying. It's important that we understand that as well. I, for one, I'm appreciative that huge companies are taking the sweet time. And you need to see, this is something that a lot of people is asking, like, how do I know if a brand actually cares or they're just greenwashing? Go and see what are the long-term plans, because, for example, people tend to attack the biggest because they're the ones that have more impact. But if you see H&M made long-term plans about sustainability and social responsibility ever since the Rana Plaza tragedy. They made plans 5 years, at 10 years, at 15 years. They have a foundation. They host a contest every year to give a prize to people who have good ideas. So this is a lot of money, and this is a lot of the thinking's head efforts going into building into something sustainable. And I don't know how many years ago they already said that they want their cotton to be fully organic by 2020 or 2025.
Yeah.
Long-term plans. You want to know if a company actually cares about sustainability or they're just trying to get people to buy their collection? Look at the long-term plan.
One brand that I really want to call out here, and mind my French, because I'm going to cuss like if I start talking about them, because I see their clothes and I work with their clothes, and they've been heavily marked down because all they want to do is be at glossy retailers, be at Bloomingdale's, be at Macy's, and be at all of these amazing retailers. And they've really, first of all, diluted their presence as a brand because they're freaking available everywhere. They're available on markdowns pretty much on Amazon. That's like the worst place to be if you're an apparel company, Amazon, because you've literally marked yourself down, you've branded yourself down so low, you've overproduced, first of all. You have so many of your clothes out there, and they're in TJ Maxx and they're discounted stores. I love discounted stores. When I look at the retailers that are doing it 10,000 times more than they have to, then I see that there is a problem. And this brand is called Free People. Okay? Free People is not doing the right thing. They have overproduced and they call themselves sustainable. I don't understand why they have so many clothes. They're all made in China. They're selling for $58 a pop. Okay, what the hell? $58 for one shirt, for one cotton linen blend shirt. I can go to H&M and get that for $20, whatever. But $58 for that, then you have so much margin and then you have so much room to mark it down. I totally see through that bullshit. That's insane.
But there's something that we need to understand. The fact that a brand is marking something down doesn't mean that they're still making money when they mark it down.
Cost of production for a cotton linen blend shirt, that too not 100% cotton shirt, right, comes up to $12 per shirt. Really good cotton. Now you as a brand, just because you're free people and you're premium and you price that at $58, right, at your retail store. So now $12 to $58, okay, that's what, 70% more. And then you have so much room to chew down so that you know what your plan is to sell at these discounted retailers. So you overproduce and you have no idea. Why are people so happy to buy from free people? They look at the tag, oh, this was $58, I got it down to $20 and I bought it from TJ Maxx.
A lot of brands have this strategy of putting like a fake price and then a discounted price. That is, for example, in Spain at least, that's illegal. People can take you to court if you have a fake discounted price. But there's a good point here. Properly sustainable things will be more expensive, period. And it's ridiculous the prices that we're paying for clothes now. And we're only paying for that because things are not sustainable. However, the luxury pricing, most times than not, has nothing to do with the product. And I used to buy a lot of sportswear, and I can tell you that you can manufacture the same quality that Nike has at 10% of the price, because I have done it. But what happens also, if I decide to create a brand, I can sell very good quality much cheaper than Nike, but I cannot sponsor athletes or football teams or things like that. All of those things cost money as well.
There are those overheads, but when you talk about a 70 to 80%, like, this is silly. You question these things because you see these things at discounted retailers and you're like, you see this same shirt, and I'm telling you this only because I've experienced this not once, not twice, but so many times.
This is very common, but the premise is, if you buy it from the original retailer, is it going to be new and it's going to be on trend? If you don't buy it then, it's going to be already passé. That's something that I can understand made sort of sense a few years ago when trends were lasting 6 months. Now it doesn't matter. But this is the dynamic where things work. But this brings me back to what we were talking at the beginning. When you're a buyer, you're a designer, you're focusing on, oh, I'm designing this, and then I'm designing this other thing, and then I'm designing this other thing. But then at the end of the day, everything is at the same time in the store, because this is not a perfect world where everything goes as you planned it. And retailers lose, like especially product development departments, lose visibility of reality because they're living in their own world where they're creating collections. And
yes,
this leads to very ridiculous things. When I joined Max, one of the first things that didn't make any sense to me was we have 3 seasons a year. Someone is saying here, I work in retail, sometimes the discount is to clear out the warehouse to make way to newer ones. Yes, I think it's related to what I'm saying now.
Yeah.
So one of the things that made me more like, what? Was we had 3 seasons. We just bought 3 seasons. We had basics that we'll have in every season. I was buying menswear, so imagine, let's say like a crew neck t-shirt pack. Every season you'll have different colors, but you also have your navy, your white, your gray melange, whatever. So every season, and there were like different entrances of every season. So let's say every month you have a replenishment of the basics.
Right.
They were changing the color of the navy. So maybe there were like 8 different navies in 1 year. What happened was when you go to the store, there's 3 or 4 different navies mixed on the shelf. Because people are not going to buy things at the order that you want them to buy. And one store is going to run out of M sizes, and they're going to need to replenish only M sizes, and then the M size that you have on the navy t-shirt is a different color.
Different color.
One of the first things I did was like, I don't want to change the cleaning melange. And they were like, you don't want to change it every season? Like, I don't want to change it ever. If it's still nice, why would I want to change it? A lot of people are looking at trying to make sense of the Excel sheet instead of trying to make sense of the store. And I was told, when I was talking to things with a former boss, I was saying, I'm just worried about the store. And they were telling me, you don't worry about the store. Why are you thinking about the store? Where are we selling?
Yeah.
Are you selling from the of your car? Of course I need to think about the store.
I mean, they lose their sense of self sometimes. Like, exactly where are you selling?
This is very normal.
I don't want to see an Excel spreadsheet telling me what to do. I want to be able to talk to people and get real-time answers to see what's going on. But at the end of the day, that's
something that is very valuable. And I did visual merchandising, so having done VM before, I was really aware I always had like the story in mind, but not everybody does, and that's okay. It's fine if you want to stay to the scope of your job description. I mean, whatever. I always wanted to go beyond, but that's what my problem. Like, I was going to the store at 3 a.m. before the launch to dress the walls myself because I wasn't happy at 3 p.m. But I was doing that because I wanted to. That's a big thing. So as we all get trapped in our visibility of the thing. So as a consumer, we get trapped on reading the labels, right? And reading the news. And you do not have visibility of what's going inside a company. You do not have visibility of why is it so difficult for companies like H&M and Zara to suddenly, at the blink of an eye, become fully sustainable. And as companies, the people who work in the companies lose visibility of real life and the product life cycle as well. This is also why the kind of education and sustainability that I want to do, it's kind of following the product life cycle and try to understand that and give visibility to that to designers. I think most fashion schools focus on harvesting creativity, and that to me is not a fashion design school. That to me is an art school. It's not the same. I think as an artist, you can express your creativity through fashion, but then design for me needs to be equal parts art and engineering, and if it's not, then that's a different thing.
True. And honestly, you've covered like literally most of the points that I've wanted to go over to educate people about this. It's not as easy as you think it is. People that are sitting across the world have a lot of things to say about the current status quo. And if you have like at least an hour or 45 minutes out of your day, and if you can actually listen to it, you'll gain some perspective. And as a consumer or as a retailer, you will think twice before you react to situations. It's not just countries reacting to situations, it's retailers and people like us that are reacting to this situation. And if we change today the way we consume and the way we react, we can definitely define a better future. Thank you so much, Adela, for giving us this amazing knowledge bombs, spreading this word across. And you're doing such a great job with your YouTube channel. And if people go to her website, people will know that what she does and as her brand. And I found some really cool links that I'll include in my show notes with the stuff that she shared. I'm a geek like that. I love these things. So she always has something knowledgeable to say because she's well read and she's very within the industry. So follow her on her social
at _Alonso_Alonso_. I, like most of us, I'm very underwhelmed lately with this whole situation. I have been working on things, but I haven't been as active. I am hoping to release by the end of August the ebook that's called The Passion Entrepreneur. And we're going to talk about business mindset for creative people. Like I would love to be home right now. My mom is a pharmacist. She's in her 60s. She's a firecracker, but she lives alone with a dog. I want to be there supporting her, because all she does is she has all this passion to helping people, but I'm very worried about her, because I know that if she gets a little bit sick, she's going to continue to work, and I don't know. I wish I was there.
Since the time that you've told me, I have been praying that you and your mom reunite in some way, that you can just go home and you can be with her. Because I know that I have the comfort of being with my family right now. But I have been on the other side when there was something really horrible that was going on in California, and I was in California and my parents were here, and that was when I needed them the most. And I can totally empathize with what you're talking about. And that's another message: love your family, your home, be with your family, and try to spend that time with them. This podcast is not about people covering up their sadness or their fear or their words.
I think it's good that in one same sitting, we're talking about things that are important and showing knowledge, and at the same time being human.
And that's exactly what I want to communicate with people here. This is not a place that you're coming to here to talk shop. It's about that. Yeah, sure, it is about talking shop, but it's also about really what you're going through mentally as a human being. There is always a human element to everything. And we're realizing that more now than ever, with Black Lives Matter, with COVID-19, with all of these disasters. We're realizing that there is a bigger human impact than just shop talk. So I'm so glad we were truly expressing ourselves on here, and that's what we can give and share to other people so that they can move forward and say that, hey, life isn't that great, but
Life, it's messy, it's complicated, it doesn't make any sense, but at the same time, it's also a blessing, and I'm happy to be here.
thank you guys for tuning into the show. All of the show links, notes, and extra material are on the show notes for this episode. You can find our guests' Instagram handles and other handouts as well. Last but not the least, I would like to thank my podcast editor, Rishi, for editing and mixing. I would also like to thank the sponsor of the show, Anchor, for providing me this amazing platform. Thank you.